If you are past your 60th year, you have likely dedicated your life to diligent labor, nurturing a family, attending to the needs of others, and doing what was required. And today, as you enter this new phase, whether you term it your golden years, your next act, or simply your turn, a significant shift begins to occur. You start to comprehend that life is less about acquiring more and more about selecting what is better. However, here is the unspoken reality. Sometimes living a better life involves releasing things, not by piling more onto your responsibilities, but by removing items from it, the routines, mindsets, and strains that no longer benefit you. In this presentation, we will delve into 9 things you ought to think about releasing after turning 60. This isn't because you've made a mistake, but because you are worthy of experiencing greater happiness, deeper serenity, and more profound liberty. These are the insights I've gathered from over a decade of connecting with individuals just like you. People in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and even older, who have taught me what it truly signifies to live a fulfilling life. Stay with me through to the conclusion, because the final point could very well transform your perspective on each new day. Let us start. 1. Cease hoarding resources out of apprehension. Here is the first item to release after age 60. Cease hoarding resources out of apprehension. Now, I understand that may sound peculiar initially. After all, saving is a principle many of us were brought up with. Save for a downpour, save for your later years, save for the unexpected. For the majority of your existence, that way of thinking has served you effectively. But at a specific juncture, particularly after 60, saving from a place of fear can begin to constrain you. Allow me to clarify. The objective of saving funds is to provide for your future self. It's an instrument, a method to arrange for the life you wish to lead down the road. But what occurs when down the road has already arrived? What occurs when you possess sufficient savings, when your financial necessities are met, and yet you remain fearful of spending a single penny? I have witnessed it repeatedly. I once knew a gentleman who had more than $1 million in his investment portfolio. He was free of debt, owned his home outright, and had plenty to sustain him for the remainder of his days. And still, whenever his wife proposed a trip to the national parks, purchasing a small boat, or even just dining at a fine restaurant, he would grow anxious. He would utter, "What if a crisis occurs? What if we require that money in the future?" And I gently asked him, "What if you fail to ever use it? What if the future doesn't unfold as you anticipate?" That inquiry resonated with him, and perhaps it resonates with you as well. Saving funds is crucial, but at a certain point, you must have faith in the life you have constructed. You must grant yourself the liberty to savor it, to embark on the journey, to purchase the present, to forge the memory, not impulsively, not without consideration, but without a sense of wrongdoing. If you have strategized effectively and your essential needs are provided for, the money you have accumulated is not solely for crises. It is for living. It is for bonding. It is for happiness. So today, I wish to present you with this change in perspective. Instead of asking, "What if I exhaust my funds?" begin asking, "What is worthy of my resources while I am still able to enjoy it?" Your moment is here. Not tomorrow, not someday. Here. 2. Cease spending on what fails to bring you happiness. The second item to release after age 60 is this. Cease spending your money on things that do not deliver genuine happiness. Now that you have granted yourself the liberty to spend, ensure you are spending on the appropriate things. All too often, we get stuck in routines. We acquire items from routine, from a sense of duty, from a feeling of obligation. We attempt to maintain a certain image or gratify others, or occupy some void we haven't bothered to identify. But if you pause and truly observe, how much of your expenditure genuinely makes you content? I once had a conversation with a woman in her early 70s. She shared that she used to allocate thousands of dollars each year to dresses she never put on, presents she felt compelled to buy, and devices she acquired simply because they were discounted. But the single expenditure she recalled most vividly? A $500 train ticket to surprise her childhood best friend for her birthday. They laughed, they wept, they stayed awake into the night reminiscing, and that single weekend held more significance for her than all the shopping excursions combined. That is the distinction between mere expenditure and wise expenditure. After 60, your funds should reflect what you hold most dear. Perhaps that is exploring new places. Perhaps it is contributing to your grandchildren's college funds. Perhaps it is weekly lunches with companions or that brand new armchair that soothes your back. Whatever it may be, spend on that. Release the things that feel burdensome, trivial, or compelled. Release the spending that originates from guilt or apprehension or the need to create an impression. You are not indebted to anyone for an account of how you opt to savor your life. And recall, happiness does not invariably carry a financial cost. At times, the most valuable moments are the most straightforward ones. Relaxing on the deck with a loved one, mailing a handwritten note, or taking a walk in the park without your mobile device. So, before you spend, inquire of yourself, is this contributing to the life I desire, or is it merely distraction? Spend with purpose. Spend with conviction. Because the aim is not to possess less or more, it is to possess significance. 3. Cease exchanging your time for money. The third item to release after age 60 is this. Discontinue the exchange of your hours for dollars, unless it continues to provide you with meaning. For the majority of your life, time and money have been intrinsically linked. You labored for a salary. You made your livelihood by being present, investing the hours and performing the task, even when it was arduous, even when it went unappreciated. And that was essential. It was the way you constructed your life. But you are now in a new phase. And in this phase, your time is your most precious commodity. Ask yourself candidly, are you still employed because you are passionate about it, or because you are afraid to cease? Does your occupation offer you purpose, or does it merely occupy your time? I am not suggesting you should leave work simply upon turning 60. If you continue to find fulfillment in your profession, if it provides you with vitality, routine, and community, by all means, continue. But do so as a choice, not from routine or fear. A man I was acquainted with had been a dedicated librarian for nearly 4 decades. When he reached 62, people persistently asked him, "When do you plan to retire?" His reply was straightforward, "When I no longer find it rewarding." And so he continued his work until he was 67. Then one day he awoke and sensed it. The time had come, and he departed with tranquility in his heart, not remorse. That is what I wish for you. But I also observe the alternative. Individuals who remain in occupations they find unenjoyable merely because they cannot define themselves outside of that position. People who are hesitant to decelerate because they have never been afforded the permission to simply exist. Here is the reality. You can always acquire more money, but you can never acquire more time. Once this day has passed, it is irretrievable, and no amount of money can reclaim it. So, if your profession still satisfies you, proceed with dignity. But if it depletes you, if it prevents you from living the life you desire, it might be the moment to release it. You have exchanged time for money long enough. Now is the time to exchange time for meaning. Chapter 4. Cease deferring experiences. The fourth item to release after the age of 60 is this. Cease deferring the experiences you have long desired. How frequently have you declared, "I will go on that journey one day. I will acquire that skill next year. I will embark on that escapade when life becomes less hectic." But here is the stark reality. One day does not appear on any calendar. And for a great many people, one day fails to materialize. I recall conversing with a pair who had long dreamed of taking an Alaskan cruise. They possessed the funds, they possessed the time, but season after season, they would say, "Next year." Then, one autumn, the wife had a health issue, not critical but sufficient to give them pause. And in that instant, they comprehended they had been awaiting a green light that was never going to come. So, they made their arrangements, set sail, and 6 months later, they informed me it was the most rewarding choice they had ever made. Not because each day was flawless, but because they had finally acted. That is the influence of taking initiative now. So I wish to ask you, what is something you have been postponing? A vacation, a pastime, a reunion with a distant relative, a message you have been meaning to compose? Why not today? You do not have to await your official retirement to begin living. You do not require everything to be flawless. And you do not require another person's approval. Because here is something most individuals do not grasp until it is too late. Work can serve as a rationalization. Routine can serve as a rationalization. Even strategizing can serve as a rationalization. Behind the procrastination, there is frequently apprehension. Fear of the unknown, fear of trying something different, fear of finally putting yourself first. But what if this year you released your habit of waiting? What if you granted yourself the permission to begin living at this moment? Not in 5 years, not when the circumstances are ideal, but at this moment. You are not excessively old. It is not past the hour. And you are permitted to create memories that feel extraordinary, regardless of your age. The world remains filled with awe. You simply need to consent. 5. Cease overlooking your well-being. The 5th item to release after the age of 60 is this. Cease overlooking your well-being. Now, I wish to state this with compassion, as I recognize this can be a delicate subject, but it is one we must address. Many people conceive of their later years in terms of the quantity of years they might have remaining. 15 years, 25 years, perhaps longer. But the superior question is this. How many healthy years do you have remaining? Because without your health, your genuine, enduring health, it is irrelevant how much money you possess in your accounts. It is irrelevant how many journeys you have organized or how magnificent your home is. If you lack the vitality or capacity to savor it, everything begins to lose its luster. Let me pose this to you. Would you prefer to have $10 million and feel unwell, exhausted, and in discomfort daily? Or would you prefer to have just $500,000 but feel energetic, robust, and full of vitality? Most people, upon reflection, would select the latter. Yet, paradoxically, many of us conduct our lives as if we are pursuing the former. Here is the positive news. You do not need to revolutionize your entire existence to feel improved. You do not need to become an ultramarathoner or adopt a severe dietary regimen immediately. Begin with small steps. Begin by walking a bit farther each day, by opting for water over sugary drinks, by doing stretches each morning, or by enrolling in a local exercise class tailored for people in your age group. Even supervised light resistance training can achieve remarkable results for your stability, vitality, and autonomy. This is not about shedding pounds or pursuing youthfulness. It is about preserving your autonomy. It is about having the ability to engage with your grandchildren, to travel without discomfort, and to awaken with vigor instead of weariness. Your body is the vessel for the life you desire, and similar to any vessel, it demands consistent attention. It demands upkeep. It demands affection. So look after yourself. Schedule that medical visit you have been postponing. Take that initial stroll down the street. Prepare a single nutritious meal this week. Just one. Because well-being is not about flawlessness. It is about progress. And the optimal time to commence is now. 6. Cease fretting about others' opinions. The 6th item to release after the age of 60 is this. Cease fretting about what other people think. Now, let us be truthful. For the majority of our lives, we have been influenced by the expectations of others. We aim to be the responsible parent, the dedicated employee, the trustworthy friend. We adhere to the norms. We do what is anticipated. But at some juncture, you must inquire, for whom am I living at this moment? I once had a client, a gentleman in his mid-60s, who had a passion for music. His entire life, he had dreamed of joining a community choir, but he was hesitant. He remarked, "What if I'm not any good? What if others find it foolish at my age?" Do you know my response? And what if they do? He joined the choir and it transformed his life. Not because he became a celebrated vocalist, but because he finally granted himself the permission to do something purely for himself.
No επάλεγεις, νόγιας τε φεκάστσενς.
Here is a powerful thought I want you to hold on to. The older you become, the more liberty you acquire to disregard the chatter around you. You wish to dress in vibrant attire? Go for it. You wish to embark on a solo journey? Do so. You wish to decline invitations to family events that leave you drained? You possess that prerogative. And this is not about being discourteous or self-absorbed. This is about living with integrity, so you do not look back with sorrow. In a book titled Whispers at Sunset, a palliative care professional shared the foremost regrets of individuals nearing the end of their lives. Do you know the primary regret? I wish I'd possessed the fortitude to live a life authentic to myself, not the life others anticipated of me. Allow that to penetrate, because when you live according to others' benchmarks for too long, you start to vanish from your own existence. So today, relinquish the burden. Let go of the compulsion to make an impression. Express your thoughts, do what you are passionate about, and permit yourself to be perceived, completely, truthfully, splendidly, exactly as you are. There is only one of you, and it is never too late to champion your own life. 7. Cease immersing yourself in doom and gloom. The 7th item to release after the age of 60 is this. Cease immersing yourself in doom and gloom, at least not constantly. Now, this one may be unexpected. Let me be precise. I am not advocating for ignorance. Remaining knowledgeable is vital. Being cognizant of the world is a component of responsible citizenship. But there is a distinction between remaining knowledgeable and being emotionally overwhelmed. If you dedicate hours each day to news broadcasts, irrespective of the network, you might begin to feel as though the world is disintegrating. And that unceasing stress, apprehension, and fear it accumulates, taxes your body, fogs your judgment. It robs you of your serenity. Here's something I frequently ask people. Have you ever encountered someone who said, after viewing 3 hours of 24-hour news each evening, I feel significantly better about existence? I haven't either, but I have encountered numerous individuals, scores of them, who shared that once they distanced themselves from the relentless news stream, their mental well-being improved, their spirits lifted, they felt more optimistic, more engaged, more at peace. You see, a significant portion of the news you consume is not crafted to enlighten you. It is crafted to capture your focus. And fear is a potent allure. The question then becomes, is that where you wish to invest your focus? After 60, you begin to understand that your attention is one of your most precious assets, and you have the authority to decide where it is directed. You can concentrate on what is fractured, or you can concentrate on what remains lovely. There is still compassion in the world. There are still virtuous people performing virtuous deeds. There is still music, humor, education, development, and affection. So, remain knowledgeable, certainly, but not at the expense of your tranquility. Restrict your intake. Power down the screen when you must. Opt for encouraging narratives. Read from publications that value your intellect, not just your apprehension. And ask yourself, has viewing this enabled me to act? Has it enriched my life? Or is it simply making me feel powerless? Because after all the years you have lived, you are worthy of more than to be paralyzed by fear. You are worthy of serenity. You are worthy of happiness. And you are worthy of investing your vitality in things you can genuinely influence. 8. Cease disregarding your financial strategy. The 8th item to release after the age of 60 is this. Cease disregarding your financial strategy, but also cease being consumed by it. This is a fine equilibrium. On one side, you have individuals who steer clear of their finances entirely. They make statements like, "It's too complex. I'll address it later," or "I'd rather not even consider it." But here is the reality. Ignoring your financial plan does not eliminate the issue. It allows it to fester in the shadows. After 60, it is even more critical to have a lucid comprehension of your money's activities. What is your monthly income requirement? What occurs if your health status changes? Are you shielded from unforeseen events? You do not have to be a specialist, but you do require a strategy, one that provides you with tranquility. Now, allow me to address the other side, the individuals who think of nothing but their finances. You are familiar with the type. Perhaps you are one. They scrutinize every penny. They ask, if I go on a holiday, how will that affect my portfolio's performance? They postpone happiness for the sake of a financial statement. Here is the issue with that approach. You did not accumulate and invest your resources merely to observe numbers on a display. You did it to live. So, yes, consult with your advisor, review your statements, ensure the fundamentals are in order. But then release it. Allow your money to perform its intended function, to support your life, not to dictate it. A robust financial plan should instill in you the assurance to say yes, not the apprehension that leaves you immobilized. I once shared this with a client, and it altered his entire outlook. The indicator of a superior retirement strategy is not merely a substantial account balance. It is a life richly lived. So, cease avoiding your finances out of apprehension. Cease being consumed by your finances out of anxiety. And begin utilizing your finances as an instrument to construct the life you desire, one joyful, deliberate choice at a time. 9. Cease living as if you have an eternity. The ninth and final item to release after the age of 60 is this: cease living as if you have an eternity. Now, I state that not to frighten you, but to encourage you to live more completely. Because by the time we arrive at our 60s, most of us have been affected by loss. Perhaps you have lost a grandparent, a dear relative, a companion. Perhaps someone you cherished profoundly is no longer with us. And in those hushed, hallowed moments of sorrow, we are reminded of something we frequently overlook. Life is finite. We all comprehend this conceptually, but we still postpone things. We await the perfect opportunity. We persuade ourselves we will eventually address it. But the truth is, you can never be certain of how much time you have remaining. And that renders today exceptionally valuable. I sometimes pose a simple yet potent question to my clients. If you were certain that this was your final year, what would you do differently? Whom would you contact? What would you express? What would you cease to endure? And what would you finally begin? Most people can provide an answer to that question almost instantly, but then they resume living in the same manner as before. So, let me ask you, what prevents you from doing some of that right now? You do not need to await a medical report or a disaster to awaken. You can awaken today, with a full consciousness of just how transient and magnificent life truly is. You can extend forgiveness to someone. You can begin that memoir. You can reserve the flight, enroll in the course, cultivate the garden, or say, I cherish you, before the chance passes. And no, you cannot accomplish everything in a single day, but you can commence, because the objective is not to live in dread of mortality. The objective is to live in reverence for life, to pay homage to this one extraordinary, unrepeatable life that you still possess. You are present. You are taking breaths. You have this day. And that is ample cause to cease waiting and to start genuinely living. So, there you have it. 9 things to release after the age of 60. Not because you have erred, but because you have merited the right to live more unburdened, more at liberty, more deliberately. Releasing is not about surrendering. It is about creating room. Room for serenity, for happiness, for being present. Room for what is truly important. Now, let us briefly recall what we have discussed today. Release saving out of apprehension. Release spending without happiness. Release exchanging your time for money when your time is more valuable. Release postponing the experiences that make you feel vibrant. Release overlooking your well-being, your most significant asset. Release fretting about others' opinions. Release the unceasing clamor of negativity. Release financial apprehension, but do not disregard your strategy. And above all, release the fantasy that you have an eternity. Because the truth is, you have this moment, and that is sufficient to begin. Before we conclude, I wish to ask you something personal. What are you prepared to release, starting today? Reflect on it, and if you are willing, post your response in the comments. You can never tell whom you might encourage simply by sharing from your heart. And if this message resonated with you, if it served as a reminder of your value, your insight, or your potential, please forward it to someone you hold dear. A companion, a relative, a partner, someone who might also need this reminder. At Golden Years Guidance, we are convinced that aging is not about decelerating. It is about engaging more completely than ever. So, I thank you for your presence. Thank you for your time, your spirit, your confidence. And most of all, thank you for showing the world that it is never too late to live a life brimming with purpose, connection, and joy. We look forward to seeing you in the next video.